welcome into the LSU Sports Insider podcast. Today is Thursday, September the 4th. I'm Zach Ewing with a couple of the Advocates LSU beat writers, Reed Darcy and Koki Riley. It's week 2, everybody. We're rolling now. We're into it. It feels good. The NFL starts this weekend. We might throw some Super Bowl picks in at the end of this show. It's in my opinion, my humble opinion, the best time of the year.
We've got football Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, right?
We do.
It's all 5 days, and we could talk about the Saints a little bit. I don't know if y'all are excited about the Saints season.
You're excited about the Saints season?
Literally, no, I'm just kidding. There are people excited about the Saints.
I mean, I'm excited to see them play and have them back, but I don't know if I have high hopes. I don't know if I'm expecting much, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Sometimes
should be interesting.
Those seasons with no expectations are the most fun because you just go in and anything that happens positive is a surprise, and that's good. LSU has kind of the opposite situation where after they beat Clemson, the expectations are now through the roof. We talked about that a little bit on Monday's pod with Reed and Scott Rabelais, where now, and Koki, I'll let you kind of have your piece on this, as they enter this home opener against Louisiana Tech that we're going to preview today. Like, it is all out there for LSU. They are now number 3 in the country. You voted them number 1. You're an AP poll voter. You had them number 1. People are talking SEC championship. People are, of course, talking college football playoff, and people are even talking national championship.
Yeah, and given that performance, they should. I mean, Clemson was my number 1 team in the country, and they beat them in a true road game. And they beat them fairly convincingly. So you combine all those things together, combined with just what this team looks like on paper, with the way if their defense can play like this, and they have the quarterback that they have. It's hard to beat that, right? Especially if the offensive line can hang in there against arguably the best defensive line in the country. So they answered their question marks. They faced a really tough team on the road, won convincingly. They kind of checked off all the boxes for a number 1 team, in my opinion. And I already had them at number 4, so it wasn't too much of a leap to get them up to number 1 after a win like that. So, yeah, that's kind of my explanation behind that. I can get into the other teams, but for me, it was about as impressive of a win as you could have asked for.
Most of the voters, I think, had Ohio State number 1, but you were one of a handful, I think, to put LSU number 1. And it's because
there's 3 of us. It was me, Reese Davis, and John Wilner.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's good company.
Yeah.
I guess so. John Wilner is notorious for having the most obscure, I should say, ballot in terms, because they put the college football Reddit feed on Twitter, it sort of puts everyone's ballot down, and then it kind of has this rating for how much different your ballot is to the actual AP ballot. I'm usually towards the bottom. I'm usually in the bottom 10, but Wilner is always last because he has the most obscure ballot. And Reese Davis being in there was a bit of a surprise too, him being the 3rd person.
I was a little bit surprised that LSU didn't get a little bit more, number 1 votes. What Heather Dinich said on ESPN over the weekend, I thought was pretty interesting, but I can see having Ohio State number 1, but I like what you're reasoning behind, putting LSU number 1. If Clemson was your number 1 team before the season, and if the number 4 team went on the road and won pretty convincingly, pretty handily over that team, then yeah, I mean, why not? LSU's right up there. They're right in that mix, 1, 2, 3, wherever you want to put them. They're one of the best teams in the country.
And I was very impressed by Ohio State's defense in that game. I didn't expect them to look that good that early, and I didn't expect Matt Patricia to have such a good plan going into that game. I was kind of worried about Matt Patricia, if anything, because he hasn't coached in a year or two. He really wasn't very impressive in the NFL, and yet he had a fantastic game plan against Arch Manning and that very talented Texas offense. But I still have enough question marks about Ohio State's offense and the fact that I had them lower than LSU heading into this. I had Texas at 3 instead of at 1. So when you sort of consider that math with my poll from the week before, it doesn't really make sense to have Ohio State at 1 and LSU at 2. And I just think LSU's the better team right now because they have the better quarterback.
Yeah, there are 2 schools of thought with poll voting, and one is I'm going to take my preseason priors and I'm going to adjust. And if a team wins, I can't drop them too much, and if a team loses, then I have to drop them from where they were, and I have, that's one way to do it. The other way is to just scrap it and start over every week, and I think that's what Wilner does. And he sits there and says, okay, LSU had the best win in the country. They're number 1. I don't know. I didn't see the rest of his poll, but I wouldn't be surprised if he had Florida State higher than a lot of people because they had one of the best wins in the country. And if you do that, then you end up with a very different, oh, hey, Georgia I think you're good, but you haven't proved it yet. All you did was beat Marshall at home, so you've got to be further down. Alabama, you might still be okay, but you lost by 2 touchdowns. You're not in my poll. And you just scrap it every single week. So it's interesting. And then as the year goes on, of course, everybody kind of comes together a little bit more because those things start to become the same thing. So now LSU goes into this game against La Tech on Saturday night, 6:30 p.m. The game is not on regular television. It's on ESPN Plus or SEC Network Plus. If you're not sure how to access that, please call our sports desk. They love taking those calls. It's like their favorite thing to do.
For Jason Yates.
Yeah, especially on deadline.
Oh, my God. Don't good.
In all seriousness, if you are a regular television subscriber who gets SEC Network, I believe you also get SEC Network Plus. You just have to use your TV login credentials. ESPN Plus is different. That's a separate subscription. But either way, you should find it.
I think that's how it works. I'm actually not sure.
I think you need an ESPN Plus subscription, right, to get the games that are over the top, like with the plus, the streaming only games.
The plus means you need the separate.
Either way, if you have an ESPN Plus subscription, you can see the game.
We're obviously confused, so we may call the sports desk as well just to figure this out. But anyway, this is not a game LSU is expected to be challenged in. The betting line is LSU favored by 37.5 points. The total is 51.5. That means that odds makers are expecting something in the neighborhood of 45-7. 38-point margin, about 52 total points, somewhere in there, 44-7, 45-7. And I think that's what we expect. So my question for you guys is, coming off of the win at Clemson, this is a letdown spot for LSU, but do you think that they fall into that sort of, I'm not saying they're going to lose the game, but fall into the trap of maybe not playing as well?
Well, they kind of did that last year against Nicholls State, right? Where Nicholls State kind of ran all over them, and LSU only won by, I think, less than 30 points, right? And that was probably a lesser talented team than the one that they're going to face off against this weekend. So I think just like the general vibe and mentality of this team suggests that they'll be fine and they'll dominate them and the game will be over before halftime. But I don't know. It's not a total guarantee, and I think this Louisiana Tech team is a little bit better than a Southeastern or a Nicholls. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all sort of shakes out. It's kind of impossible to know whether they're going to be up for it or not, but based on what we're hearing from this team, based on how different that opener was for them, my guess is that they'll be fine.
Last year against Nicholls, it was a very similar situation. Week 2, LSU has this big opener against USC, and then there's this week 2 game against an in-state non-conference school sandwiched between that big game and then your SEC opener. And people forget, and I don't know if people really remember this. 2 minutes into the second half last year, the score was 23-21 LSU. LSU only had a 2-point lead. Then after that, they pulled away and they won 44-21. I think it was telling earlier this week that Brian Kelly brought up the fact that he didn't like how LSU played against Nicholls last year. He thought they were kind of sluggish. They weren't exactly focused. They let Nicholls hang around way longer than they probably should have. And so I think just overall, given the vibes of this team, the mentality with the way they approach the Clemson game, and they're just more talented, I'm not expecting a similar letdown kind of game. I think it'll be more clear, more decisive for LSU, just because it feels like they're more focused. It feels like they're more locked in, and that just this team has just a different mindset than the one last year, even the year before. So I'm expecting a more clear, decisive victory than what we saw last year.
And they're also just more talented. Like Brian Kelly said it on
better play
yesterday. They have better players, so that's a factor too.
I think that's true. I'm a little torn on this because on one hand, like, there really shouldn't be a letdown. You should be excited. It's your home opener. The crowd is going to be into it at least for the first quarter or so, right? Like, yeah. I mean, pregame and everything like that. It's going to be a big crowd. They're going to be excited by what happened last week. On the other hand, it's not just the Clemson game. It's also, as you guys mentioned, they play Florida next week. And if you had to rank their most important games for the rest of the season, like, Florida is right up there with any of them. You really, really want to win that game. It's your conference opener. It's possibly a fellow competitor for an SEC title spot or a playoff spot. It's obviously want to hold serve at home. So next week is critically important. And last week was obviously critically important. And so here we are sandwiched in between, and you have Louisiana Tech. So and we'll get to our predictions later, but I could see this situation where LSU, not that they're ever in danger of losing, but maybe there's like a little bit of a lull mid-game where they've kind of put the game out of reach, and it's 21-3, and yeah, they're going to win. And then it's just sort of like the energy just kind of, fans start leaving, and you feel it on the sideline, and it's just sort of like, okay, let's just go through the motions and get this thing over with. And that's where I feel like you could feel a little bit of a letdown is sort of middle of the game. Then you put the backups in, and maybe the backups excited to earn some more playing time or just to get out there for the first time.
Or maybe they struggle because they haven't played much. Like,
yeah,
it's hard to predict these things.
You just never know. So I'm a little bit torn on it, but it is the next, challenge on LSU's plate, and they're very careful to play the 1-0 game. But like we can talk about that. We're in the team facility. Ordinarily, they have like a little grid of all 12 games, and they add the SEC championship game and the college football playoff and everything. This year, all of the little opponents are covered up except for the next one, including, by the way, the previous one.
Right now, they have
covered up too.
Last week, it was the only game you could see was Clemson, and this week when we went in there, Clemson was covered up, and Louisiana Tech was you could see Louisiana Tech, and all the rest of the good games were covered up. So it's super cliche. It's the most basic, boring thing ever.
Yeah.
But LSU is trying to go 1-0 every week. That's the most boring, cliche coach speak thing you could do, but it seems to be working for them. So
yeah, last week that felt like a gimmick when we were talking. If we were talking about it, if we saw that, but after they won, it's hard to call it a gimmick now.
Well, in all seriousness, obviously going 1-0 this week on the surface is much easier than it was last week. You're playing an overmatched opponent. You're going to win the game. But from are we going to play well perspective, I think that mentality is even more important this week, because last week, of course, you were focused on Clemson. That's what you'd been talking about all summer long. It's the biggest game on your schedule. It's a road game. Everybody's talking noise. Of course, you're razor focused on that game. Is everybody razor focused on Louisiana Tech? That takes a little more doing. So that's what I'm curious to see. But we are going to break it all down. First, I want to let you know that the LSU Sports Insider is brought to you by Jerry Lane Cadillac. Command the road in a Cadillac, where luxury, power, and presence come together. Experience it today at Jerry Lane Cadillac. We're going to do a blow-by-blow breakdown of LSU versus Louisiana Tech. First, we're going to take a break. We will be back on the LSU Sports Insider.
I think the biggest thing that separates us is our people. We have a really amazing staff that really care about their customers, really care about our product. At Jerry Lane Cadillac, we value trust and transparency above all else. We have a little bit of something for everyone. So whether it be the 2025 Escalade, any of the smaller crossover vehicles, the XT4, 5, and 6, we've also got a wide variety of new EVs, including the 2025 electric Escalade IQ. I think the product lineup right now is the best that it's ever been in Cadillac.
Did they ask you to do the commercial too?
Yeah, but they just gave me one line.
Bet like a Caesar. Like, we're gonna sit here and we're gonna tell them how Caesar's Sportsbook is just so easy to use that you can watch and bet thousands of sports events, even some NFL games.
They'll probably show us betting on our favourite players and teams at all the Vegas hotspots too.
Like, we have time for that montage.
I told him I couldn't do it.
They couldn't afford me.
You know how far I've gone, now I'm home again. I'm feeling more alive these days than I've ever been.
At the Baton Rouge Clinic, our sole focus is to provide exceptional health care for your entire family so that you can get back to doing what you love most. We are caring for generations.
You gave me love.
And you are watching the LSU Sports Insider podcast. We appreciate you hanging out with us. Subscribe to the LSU Tigers at NOLA.com YouTube channel to get all of our videos, all of our content. We will have a post-game show live from Tiger Stadium Saturday night. And while you're there, leave us a comment. Let us know your Louisiana Tech prediction or whether you think LSU faces a letdown. And while you're at it, hit the thumbs up for us and share the show with your friends. Okay, digging into LSU, Louisiana Tech, guys, going to start with an injury report. It's brought to you by the Baton Rouge Clinic. And the injury report is there is no injury report. And that's even better news from Clemson. Did you have?
there's one thing.
One thing. Dustin Hill fractured his left hand, had to get surgery, got it on Monday. And then they put a plate in it, and they hope he's back for week 3. He'll be out this week, but then they hope he's going to be back next
So
week.
I apologize. I missed that. But a depth piece, really. Like not...
Yeah.
To come out of that game and have that be your only injury, like, not that it's good for Destin, and I hope he heals up, but you'll take that.
Especially since they only expect him to miss 1 week. I mean, he'll probably have to play with that plate in for the rest of the season. But he was going to be maybe a small part of the LSU.
He technically started the game, which is a surprise.
Yeah, and he ended up playing 2 snaps because he got hurt. But this kind of game against Louisiana Tech, where he might have had a pretty large role and could have shown exactly what he's capable of. So he'll get that chance later on in the season.
Yeah. So that part is too bad. But again, all year. We talked about this on Monday, but there was like 4 guys who limped off the field at various points, and all of them ended up being fine. So you'll take that ratio.
Yep.
All right. The injury report was brought to you by the Baton Rouge Clinic, your trusted healthcare provider in the heart of Baton Rouge. Whether you're in need of primary care, specialist services, or urgent care, the Baton Rouge Clinic has you covered with a team of dedicated and experienced professionals. Visit BatonRougeClinic.com to learn more or to schedule your appointment today. The Baton Rouge Clinic, caring for generations. Start our breakdown here of LSU versus La Tech when LSU has the ball, when the Tigers are on offense. This is not a typical breakdown like LSU's going to win this game. I mean, it would be the stunner of the century if they didn't. But what are you looking for when LSU has the ball, Reed?
First place that I want to talk about is the second team offense. And I know we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves here, but I just want to see what Michael Van Buren looks like, the backup quarterback. How much run will he get? Will he play an entire half? Will he play an entire quarter? We're not sure, but there were times throughout preseason camp where he and overall the second team offense kind of looked a little shaky. It was tough for them to get in rhythm. It was tough for them to complete passes in 7-on-7 drills and 11-on-11 work. So we haven't seen exactly what Michael Van Buren is capable of and how he looks in a real game setting. And he is a really important part of LSU's not only present, I suppose, if anything, knock on wood, happens to Garrett Nussmeier, but also the future, because you theoretically think that next year LSU's either going to go into the transfer portal to try to get a quarterback, or they're going to have a competition with Michael Van Buren or Colin Hurley. So you want to see what he looks like. You want to see if he's a capable option as a starter next year, and these are the only games that you can really see what he's capable of. This one, Southeastern, Western Kentucky. So you're going to get your first set of eyes on him this weekend and then see what he looks like.
Yeah, I'm going to go a similar route to Reed, just in the fact that their running game and who they used at running back against Clemson was pretty interesting, because Juwan Johnson kind of vaulted himself to the number 2 position, given the amount of touches and carries he got in this game. He was easily LSU's number 2 back. Caden Durham's the number 1. There's no question about that. And we don't really need this game to sort of reaffirm that's his status at all. But I'm kind of curious to see what sort of looks Harlem Berry and Caleb Jackson get in this game, especially if and when it gets out of hand. And I think like those 2 guys taking a step forward and trying to emerge a little bit. Not to say that they're in a bad spot with Juwan as the number 2. I thought he actually played decently, pretty well in that Clemson game. So I kind of want to see that running back depth and see what it looks like in a game like this, in an opportunity like this.
I'm curious on going back to the start of the game, like the running game. I just, on paper, it looked fine last week, but I mentioned this on Monday's show. Like, if you take out Caden Durham's 24-yard run on the first play of the game, which was not that he doesn't get credit for that, but it wasn't like a well-blocked play, right? Like, he should have been down in the backfield. Defender misses him. He's able to stay up and run for 24 yards. Great individual effort. But if you take that out, 21 carries by the running backs for just 58 yards, against a good defense, granted. So I want to see them dominate a little more consistently. Caden Durham, let's get him toward 100 yards. Let's see if, you can get into the backups and just, big chunk runs are great, but I also want to see the 5s and 6s and 8s and just sort of show that you can do that, because LSU was missing that all year in 2024, and they were really missing that Saturday in Clemson as well. And again, that's a good defensive line, but now we have a defense that LSU really should be able to do that against. And in a similar vein, like I found it super interesting that Garrett Nussmeier, against a good defense, Aaron Anderson was his sort of security blanket. Yeah. That was where he wanted to go on a big play when he was in trouble, when they needed yards. Now that he may be in more comfortable situations, does he spread the ball out more? Like, do we see Nick Anderson get involved? Do we see Barron Brown get? He obviously he was involved, but
he was involved more than I thought he was.
Yeah.
Especially after rewatching the game.
But do we see a few of these other guys get more targets than just Brown? Yes, but also Aaron Anderson and Trey Green got a line share.
And I like that y'all brought up the run game, because I think it would be a little bit concerning if LSU can't get the push that you really want them to get in a situation like this, because that's a little bit of what we saw last year against Nichols. I mean, the run game, it didn't look great at any point throughout the season. They never really got the push that they needed to create the holes. So if it looks good, if it's sharp, and it really is the foundation of what this offense does in this game against Louisiana Tech, then I think that's a positive sign for the rushing attack going forward. And on top of that, when the second team offense comes in, at whichever point, you want to get a good look at, who are the tackles, who's the center, maybe DJ Chester. How does that line hold up? How does it protect Michael Van Buren? How does it open up lanes for the rushing attack? Because one small little point of concern that I still have left over from the Clemson game is exactly how much depth does LSU have on the offensive line, and what would happen if one or two of the starters have to miss time. So that's one thing I'll look for as well.
They were operating in an awful lot of 3rd and 10, 3rd and 12. That should be 2nd and 4, 3rd and 4. Like that's what I really want to see.
Oh, well, a lot of their running game was the screen game too. So I actually thought they did a pretty good job of staying ahead of the sticks in this game. I mean, there were some 3rd and longs. There's going to be some of those, but like there was the Garrett Nussmeier read option play. At one point, they ran a screen to Juwan Johnson, the same exact play 3 times in a row, where Johnson's lined up with 2 tight ends and an empty set. So they were running 12 personnel empty, and they just threw it to Johnson. He was screened by both tight ends, and then he just ran it for a first down. And that's a pass play technically, but it's really a run. They ran they were moving the linebackers all over the place, misdirection. There was one of the big plays to Aaron Anderson was technically a screen. That was behind the line of scrimmage. So I thought like the combination of their run game and their screen game, and the creativity you saw with those two things was really fantastic throughout the game. And I thought they did a really, really good job of not just staying ahead of the sticks, but getting a lot of first downs off of those plays too.
And Nuss even got under center and had a little sneak there one or two times. Yeah.
You say that, but I believe their average distance to go on 3rd down was over 10 yards in that game. I have to go back and double check that, but it was. Now, staying ahead of the sticks can mean 2 things. You can get first downs on 2nd down, and then you don't even have to face a 3rd down.
Yeah.
So they did some of that.
It was like first downs on first down. And that was a lot of it, yeah.
And you have to give them credit. Look, even with those 3rd down numbers, they were 4 of 11, which isn't terrible.
Yeah.
And they were obviously able to put up points.
They stayed on the field.
Yeah, and win the game. So I'm not sitting here and saying it's a disaster. Obviously, it's not. But against a defense like La Tech, you should not be in that situation hardly ever. You should be in 2nd and 4 and 3rd and 1 a whole lot more than you were.
Yeah, no third and longs.
Yeah, a penalty, you'll get one somewhere, but I mean, it should be a lot less frequent.
And another thing I kind of want to see is like, let's see if they can stretch the field, get a 30-yard completion, a 40-yard completion, a 50-yard completion, because they didn't really do that a lot in this game, and in the Clemson game, and I understand why, because it was hard to find the protection, hard to find the time for Nussmeier to uncork a 40-yard pass downfield. They just didn't really take the top off the defense hardly at all in that game. I didn't really expect it heading into the game too much. Rapp thought it was important heading in and sort of getting a couple of those off to sort of really loosen up the defense and make things easier for you offensively, where you don't have to go 10 yards at a time, get those big chunk plays. I want to see if they can really do that in this game against an overmatched opponent, and where you don't have to be game planning for the defensive line quite as much.
By the way, Louisiana Tech shut out Southeastern last week. They won 24-0. They allowed 2.9 yards per rush and only 4.7 yards per pass. They forced 3 turnovers. Again, this is not Clemson's defense, and that's why we're saying all this stuff should be better. But the strength of this La Tech team is the defense. So LSU is going to have to kind of push them around a little bit and show that they can do that.
Last year, Louisiana Tech, I had it here, second in Conference USA in scoring defense and second in Conference USA in total defense. So they got a good defense. LSU fans might recognize a name here. Colby Fields is one of their linebackers. He led them in tackles last week, 13 tackles. He went to Rummel, and he even had a little cup of coffee at LSU. He transferred to LSU briefly, and he started at South Carolina. So he's a decent player, and he could give LSU some problems.
Yeah, he was at LSU in the first year under Kelly. I transferred him from South Carolina.
And Mekhi Mason had 2 sacks, 4.5 tackles for loss in that game against. Now, kid, you got to keep in mind the competition here, but those are the guys who, if you do struggle, they may give you some problems. So we'll flip it around when Louisiana Tech has the ball, and this is where what we saw from that LSU defense last week, like, oh my goodness. Because Louisiana Tech, by the way, their offensive numbers were no great shape. They were actually outgained in that game against Southeastern. I think they only had 260 yards or so. I mean, it wasn't very good.
Oof.
This LSU defense looked really good. A lot of times defense can be a question of motivation. Are you going to be as motivated when it's 21-3 in the second quarter? I don't know, but they should really feast here.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if they can play man coverage in the back like they did against Clemson, and there's no reason why you can't think they can't do that again. And if they do that again, they can get really creative with their linebackers. And I feel bad for Trick Cuckoo, their quarterback. Right, he's going to be in some big trouble in this game. Because I mean, if Kate Klubnik can't get past Harold Perkins and Whit Weeks when those guys are sprinting at him, I don't think there's any quarterback in the country who really can.
Yeah, exactly. I'll just be looking for Harold Perkins and see if he looks like the disruptive force that he did against Clemson. One thing I noticed from the Clemson game is that Harold Perkins had 1.5 tackles for loss. That's the same amount of tackles for loss he had in the 4 games he played last year. So it only took him 1 game to match that number, and that's what it felt like when you were watching the game live. He was a lot more disruptive, a lot more present in the defense. It felt like LSU really figured out a way to maybe finally use him the right way to optimize all of his skills and all of his talent and all of his athleticism, and it starts with their ability to play man coverage in the back end with their corners. So I'd expect, if you want to see something positive to take with you throughout the rest of the season, you want to see Harold Perkins in the backfield a couple times, get him a sack, get him a big tackle for loss, and that should give him confidence that he needs to go through to games like Florida and South Carolina coming up.
Yeah, and as Reed mentioned, it's not just playing him in the right position, it's having the right personnel to use him in the way that you want to use him. Yes. As you mentioned, by playing man coverage in the back, now you're not playing zone. Now you don't have to drop linebackers in the coverage as often. And in this game, they hardly dropped the linebackers in the coverage after rewatching it. I mean, they were sending 5 on more than half of these snaps, especially when it was on passing downs. They were sending these guys virtually every single time. And when you're doing that, and when the defensive line is doing its job as well, when you have a guy like Jack Pyburn who's crashing the tackle in, so Perkins or Weeks can loop around him and make the play in the backfield. Like when stuff like that's happening to go along with the man coverage in the secondary, it just opens up the linebackers to do whatever they want to do with them. And that just makes life so much easier for Blake Baker, makes life so much easier for Whit Weeks and Harold Perkins. And I think that's exactly what you saw on Saturday.
Also want to see in the second half, we talked all summer about how much deeper this defense was. Let's see some of that depth. I mean, can the second and third string guys get out there and show that they can also play and it's, again, Conference USA opponent, whatever, dominate them. I mean, that is now the expectation. We talk about expectations. That's now the expectation for this defense against a team that had 130 yards passing from its quarterback last week. Like, this is not an explosive offense. Go dominate.
Yeah, you should see quite a lot of Deshaun Spears, quite a lot of Javion Toviano at safety. I'd imagine we'll see even more of DJ Pickett than we saw last week. Just see what he looks like as a freshman, get him more comfortable out of Florida. And on the interior, what does Gabe Relaford do? What does Kalaj Cobbins, who's kind of the under-the-radar kind of name, who seems to always flash in camp. He's a young guy, so just looking at the young guys on defense and evaluate them and see how they look against this competition and get their feet wet, because there's a chance that LSU might need them in some big games down the stretch.
More rotation at corner, you know.
Yeah.
Do they have to play the same 3 guys throughout the game when they have another big matchup and week after this against Florida, right? Can you lean on Jakeem Jackson a little bit more? Can you lean on Ashton Stamps a little bit more? It was a surprise to me that those guys didn't see the field against Clemson at all. That PJ Woodland was the guy who started and played pretty well. So you have Mansour Delane, obviously, but can you have more rotation out of that number 2 spot, or even some rotation out of the 1 spot? Because I don't know if Delane should be playing 50 some odd snaps in a game where you're going to be up pretty big early.
You'd like to save him. You would like to save
exactly.
We're going to get into our keys to the game and predictions to end the show. First, quick trip around the SEC. A little bit of a slow week. We got Michigan, Oklahoma as the college game day game in Norman. A chance for the Sooners to make a big statement. That's a team on LSU's schedule. Couple of other, there's the first conference game of the year, Ole Miss and Kentucky, I believe.
Yep.
Revenge spot for the Rebels. They lost that game at home last year. Couple of other Power 4 on Power 4. Kansas, Missouri, big rivalry is back after 14 years.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
We were talking about colors. I really don't like red and blue together. So that's my thoughts on that. That game that'll be fun. I mean, it really will be, even for a neutral. Like I'm a Missouri graduate. I was there when Missouri was in the Big 12, and that is one of the more intense, probably underrated rivalries in the country. In fact, they haven't played in 14 years, and it's back.
Yeah.
That'll be a lot of fun. Virginia Tech, Vandy. There's a couple of others. South Florida's a little bit interesting because Florida's in the same spot, right? Like, you look ahead to LSU, but South Florida's pretty darn good. They beat the snot out of Boise State on opening night.
And Koki's Sun Devils are going to Starkville to play Mississippi State.
Yes. That should be interesting.
Need more cowbell in your life?
Yeah, they were trying to replicate the cowbells at practice in Tempe the other day, and they need a lot more cowbells to replicate that noise at Mississippi State. I mean, you and I went a couple of years ago, right?
Yes.
When LSU played them in Starkville, and that is at the very beginning of the game, it was really, really loud with those cowbells. Like,
when did you stop hearing the cowbells in your ears? At how much time after the game?
After one of Malik Neighbors' touchdowns.
Yeah. Oh no, I meant inside your own head.
Inside your own head. Pretty soon after, just because we didn't get the full experience because the game was over so quickly.
Yeah, fair.
But yeah, no, I think when you just look at that whole SEC slate, really, really curious to see what Oklahoma and Michigan looks like, because those are 2 new look teams that we didn't get a good feel for last week. I guess we got a slightly better feel for Michigan because they actually played a New Mexico team that, I mean, at least we have heard of, at least. I feel like Bryce Underwood, relevant subject here, he showed some promise. I mean, it's New Mexico, but geez, the anticipation, the talent, the athleticism, it was all, you could see the flashes, and that was very exciting if you're a Michigan fan. And then Oklahoma is a team I'm pretty high on heading into this year. I'm kind of curious to see what they do against the Michigan defense.
Underwood looked really sharp, and I saw some people kind of upset that game day is going to going to Norman for that game and not the Kansas-Missouri game. I saw some people kind of upset about that, given the rivalry of that game. And
they're both, Michigan-Oklahoma is clearly the bigger game, so I think that's fine. Kansas-Missouri is going to be a ton of fun. And by the way, this is the week. There's not really a headliner this week. I mean, I guess it's Michigan-Oklahoma, but from a season-long perspective, you're not looking at these games as crazy big games like we had last week. But this is the type of week where, as a SEC school and an SEC fan, LSU fans need to this is where the conference needs to show its strength. Can Missouri beat Kansas? Because Kansas is not a bad team. They're going to finish in the top half of the Big 12.
Yeah, they're a good
Missouri
team.
Could absolutely lose that game. So can Missouri hold on there? Can Vandy go to Virginia Tech, and beat them for the second straight year and show the bottom of the SEC is better than, maybe the middle of the ACC? Mississippi State, Arizona State should win that game, but I don't think it's impossible that Mississippi State wins that game at home, and what a statement for the conference that would be. And then, of course, Oklahoma against Michigan. If you can what people think Oklahoma is a mid-tier SEC team, go beat one of the Big Ten contenders. These are the weeks where the conference makes a statement.
Yeah, Kansas got a lot of hype last year because of all their returning pieces, and this year they don't have that quite as much, but they're still a really well-coached team.
Good quarterback.
They still have Jalen Daniels at quarterback. They're sneaky dangerous in the Big 12. I mean, there's like 8 teams that could win the Big 12. They're probably toward the bottom of that, but like they have a chance. And Missouri looked really good in week 1. I know they played nobody, but it was still very impressive.
Yeah, nobody gives you credit for those games.
Yeah,
but if you go win these games, if Vandy goes and wins this game, if Missouri wins with this game, Mississippi State could pull an upset. Oklahoma, those are the games that at the end of the year, a team like LSU and say, oh well, you beat Oklahoma and they beat Michigan. That gives you a leg up in playoff seeding.
Mm-hmm. I agree completely.
And like, if you're not, the SEC doesn't want Alabama losing to Florida State. That's
and you got to make up for that a little bit.
Yeah,
as a conference, right?
Exactly.
If you want to call yourself the strongest conference, these are the type of games that are really important. I think
Auburn beating Baylor on the road was actually sneaky.
That's
big.
Another big one. Yeah, but there's like 3 of those this week.
Yeah,
like where you're going to face teams that will contend in other conferences, and you can go and say, well, yeah, but look, this team that's 4-4 in the SEC won that game against a team that's 6-2 in that conference. So that shows the conference strength. So I do think it's a big week as far as that goes. LSU does not have one of those games. They have Louisiana Tech. Let's do our keys to the game. Not necessarily a key to a Tigers victory, but a key to them playing well, or what you would like to see, Coach.
I mentioned the running back depth already. Reed mentioned, Michael Van Buren and how he should look. For me, it's just, I guess just to touch on something we haven't really talked about as much. I'd like to see, someone like Deshaun Spears play a little bit more in this game. Like younger guys who played a little bit in the first game or not at all, just to sort of step up on the defensive side of the ball, specifically. We already talked a lot about the offense. So I look at Deshaun Spears, I look at even Ashton Stamps, I look at Ahmad Bro, Kalash Cobbins is a really good call for this. These guys on defense, these younger guys on defense who could potentially work their way into depth roles, if not be there already. Can they take a step forward in this game?
I'll start with the vertical passing game, and specifically with Chris Hilton. He didn't have a very good game against Clemson. He was kind of put in a tough spot on that 4th down on the screen where he fumbled. But maybe if Garrett Nussmeier can get a couple shots downfield, maybe to Chris Hilton, just have him catch a couple deep balls, maybe a long touchdown, and build his confidence back up, because LSU's going to really need him and really going to need Barryon Brown and that part of the offense to be in sync when it plays a team like Florida or a team like South Carolina. And we didn't see a ton of it last week against Clemson, just because the matchup didn't really call for that. The game plan didn't really dictate for that. So now when there's an opportunity like this, you want to make sure that Nuss is on the same page and is in a rhythm with those receivers who can really stretch the field, because that's super important. The other thing I want to mention, not just Chris Hilton, but Nick Anderson as well. We didn't see a ton of him against Clemson. How healthy is he? How good does he feel? What's his connection like? Nussmeier, what's his role on the offense? If you can get him involved, throw him some balls, maybe look his way in the red zone, then I think that will speak volumes, and that'll help build his confidence ahead of Florida.
I just want to see how quickly LSU gets comfortable. Let's say last year when they were 6-1, 5-1, 6-1 after the win over Ole Miss, and everyone was saying, "Oh, this is a top 10 team and a playoff contender." The thing that was kind of biting in the back of my mind said, "Yeah, but if you were really that good, you'd have put away Nichols faster than that. You'd have put away UCLA, a bad Big Ten team, faster than that." They kind of struggled in those spots, and that always gave me pause. Is this truly like a top 10 team? Put them away. Mm-hmm. You are better than this team. Put them away. It doesn't have to be a huge score. You don't have to cover the spread, anything like that. But middle of the second quarter, this game should be over.
Yeah,
that's what I want to see.
35-7, something like that.
Even if it's 27-0, right? Like 24-0. Just show that they have no chance to score on your first team defense. Show that your first team offense is in cruise control, and just let the backups play the second.
Before halftime. Do it before halftime. Don't let them
feel like it's domination.
Don't make people grumble in the third quarter that you've got to throw the starters out there for a couple more series to put the thing away. Don't That if you're a national championship contender, that really shouldn't happen. Okay, so predictions. Scott Rabelais is not here. He did leave us his prediction. I got to look it up. You can leave your prediction in the comments below. Scott's prediction was 48-13 LSU. Probably pretty comfortable, maybe a little higher scoring than some of us have it, but I think that's right around where we all are. Koki?
I went 49-10 LSU. How much do I have to explain this? Because I just feel like they're
What's
better
the
team.
halftime?
Oh, that's a better question. 35-3.
Okay.
I like
at
that.
halftime. Yeah.
I went 45-7. I think LSU covers, and I think the over hits. So 45-7 is what will notch that. Is what will hit both of those.
So as the only person on this podcast who's 1-0 in predictions, I took LSU last week, and I admitted a little bit of it was to be contrarian. If everyone else had taken LSU, I probably would have.
He loves to be contrarian, if you haven't noticed.
I didn't actually mean to do it this time, but I was a little contrarian in that I'm the only person who took Louisiana Tech to cover the spread. I went 41-13 LSU. I do think, as I said at the beginning, there will be a little bit of a mid-game lull. Like I think LSU jumps out and they're up, say 17-0, and then the energy starts to slip out of the building, and LSU maybe feels that and has to punt on a couple of possessions, and it just, let's say it's 24-6 at halftime or something like that, and then LSU, the backups give up one TD. It's 41-13. Everybody's healthy and happy going into Florida.
Koki, I don't know how often you listen to our Saints podcast, but he's a contrarian on there too quite a bit. So it's not just an LSU podcast kind of thing.
It's in my blood.
So you just gonna keep on picking the Saints to win games.
I might the Saints to beat the Cardinals. I haven't decided yet. You have to watch Saints Insider tomorrow.
By the way, I love the gold end zones. Not a huge fan of the uniforms they're wearing on Sunday, but I do love the gold end zones.
First time they've ever worn alternate uniforms.
Yeah.
What?
I guess it's a new era for sure.
I don't like it.
All right, quick NFL predictions.
Reed doesn't like alternate uniforms. What? I thought you live when LSU wears like all gold or
their purples
right? You love that.
No, I think they should just wear the classics.
The Saints have great uniforms. LSU does too. The Saints have great uniforms, man. Don't mess with them.
Play the classics.
Yeah. Every once in a while, okay, but not for the Open. All right. Quick NFL predictions. How about a Saints record and a Super Bowl pick?
Koki,
we're a little on the spot here, so
I didn't tell you about the Saints record part.
Yeah, that's what I mean. We're on the spot here a little bit, but I mean, I'm definitely a pretty big NFL fan, so I'll be fine. I'll go Saints at 5-12. I think they're a little bit better than some people are giving them credit for on paper.
The Vegas line win total is 4.5, so you would
a slight over on that. I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl or anything or come close to the playoffs, but some people are like, this is the worst team in the league, and I don't think so. Have you looked at Cleveland's offense? And then for the Super Bowl pick, Chiefs, because it's just they're inevitable. Even though I don't think they even have the best roster in the AFC, they're just inevitable. And then in the NFC side, that's where it gets really tough. It's gonna be really boring, but it's probably gonna be Green Bay.
Okay. And who wins?
Green Bay.
Green Bay over the Chiefs. Okay. That's not total chalk.
Yeah.
Saints, I've had this one prepared for a while. 4-13 is what I'll go with. That's kind of what I've been gravitating towards the last few weeks or so. I'll go with that. I think Tyler Shuck is starting by week 4.
In Buffalo?
Sorry, week 5.
Okay. That's kind of mean to Tyler Shuck.
No, I wasn't familiar with that familiar with the schedule. Week 5, I think he'll be starting week 5. Super Bowl, I think I'll also go with the Packers. Micah Parsons trade kind of pushed me over the edge for that.
Same here.
And, I think, I want to say the Chiefs, but I don't want to say the Chiefs, for the reasons Koki mentioned. So I'll go different. I'll say Baltimore. I'll say the Baltimore Ravens make the Super Bowl and they beat the Packers in the Super Bowl. So Packers-Ravens.
I've also got 5-12 for the Saints. So I'm with you, Koki. I was 6-11 to start the preseason, and I one win less optimistic. I'm at 5-12, and then I also like the Packers. I also like the Ravens. But I was on the Packers kind of before the Parsons trade, and now I have that bad feeling where everybody's picking them, and I'm like, oh, I don't like that. Because I'm the contrarian. I don't like that. I don't like it when everybody's picking them. So I'm going to go contrarian, and as I said yesterday on Saints Insider, the limb that I'm going out on is a very precarious one because it is Matthew Stafford's back. The Rams beat the Bills.
Ooh, I like
just
that.
risky. I like it, but it's so risky.
Healthy. If he doesn't stay healthy, it's over.
But if he's 100%, then I could totally see the Rams
possible.
also.
Jimmy Garoppolo is the backup, and Jimmy Garoppolo has played in the Super Bowl before, so it's not totally outlandish. But that's my pick.
And there's a lot of other like older and injury prone players on that offense too. So it's not just him. Like Puka Nakua's injury history, Devontae Adams' age, some of the injuries on their offense, some of the age injuries on their offensive line.
They have a young defense. Risky. They have a young defense.
Yeah, and they do have a very young defense. But but if those guys on offense stay healthy, then they are a Super Bowl contender. I really do believe that. So.
All right. So just a little added bonus for you there, a little lagniappe from the NFL, which starts tonight. Then we have LSU and Louisiana Tech Saturday night. We will have full coverage for you on theadvocate.com/LSU. We will have a post-game show for you here on the YouTube channel, and we look forward to seeing you there. For our producer, Molly Ballinger, he is Koki Riley. He is Reed Darcy. I'm Zach Ewing. I'm sorry, it's Courtney Lawrence, isn't it? I can't. There's a screen there, and I can't see her. Courtney Lawrence.
4 days a day.
Molly's just sitting there. And this has been the LSU Sports Insider. Thanks for watching.